Gentlemen, hello everyone. Welcome to our TED event on the topic, the future of work, AI shifts in critical skills, hosted here at SwissNext China. My name is Felix Mösner. I'm the CEO of SwissNext China, the science consulate of Switzerland in China. SwissNext is here to build bridges, add value, and connect the dots in education, research, innovation, and art science. SwissNext is located around the world in Boston, San Francisco, China, India, and Brazil, and part of the SwissNext network, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. The celebration is called Next 20. So we look into the next 20 years. As such, we are part of the Swiss Digital Days with the Swiss International Ambassadors track. Our focus is on working tomorrow, AI and skills. What critical skills we will need for the future. Without further ado, I would like to jump into the topic with the clash of titans between Jack Ma and Elon Musk during the World AI Conference 2019, which was held here in Shanghai. This will set the tone for our discussion. Enjoy.
Let's welcome Mr. Elon Musk, the co-founder and CEO at Tesla, and Jack Ma, the co-chair of the UN High-Level Panel on Digital Cooperation. Let's give them a very big applause. Welcome.
The biggest mistake that I see artificial intelligence researchers making is assuming that they're intelligent. Yeah, they're not compared to AI. And so a lot of them cannot imagine something smarter than themselves, but AI will be vastly smarter, vastly. So what do you do with a situation like that?
I think AI is going to open a new chapter of the society, of the world, that people try to understand ourselves better, rather than the outside world.
In the last 200 years, we worry about the new technology going to take away all the jobs. Actually, we made a lot of jobs. Second, because of the Industrial Revolution, job created a lot of jobs. What I think is the next 20, 30 years, human being will live much longer. The life science technology is going to make people live probably 100, 120 years. That may not be a good thing because you got grandfathers still working hard. But the challenge is, why should we have a lot of jobs? I think people should work 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. When we have electricity, the power of electricity is that we make people more time. So you can go to the karaoke in the evening, you can go to dancing party in the evening. So people, because of electricity, people have more time. I think because of artificial intelligence, people will have more time enjoy being human beings. So we need artificial intelligence, the robots to take care of the old guys. For sure, you will not be happy, or you were happy, because when your grandfather said, oh, I need to work tomorrow, then that's a disaster. So I think we cannot predict the future, but we should be ready that we are going to enter into the era that everybody can live 120 years. And we have more new problems that come up. So that's my view about jobs. Don't worry about it. We will have jobs.
Yeah. I think that, over time, AI will make jobs kind of pointless. Probably the last job that will remain will be writing AI software, and then eventually the AI will just write its own software. So, I don't know, I suppose I would recommend studying engineering, physics, that kind of thing, or working on something where people just want to interact with other people. And people enjoy fundamentally interacting with other people. So if you're working on something that involves people or engineering, it's probably a good approach. Art, of course. Yeah. Like I said, I think we're going to have to figure out this Neuralink situation. Otherwise, we will be left behind. It's very important we do this quickly.
Well, it's quite clear that the debate revealed opposite opinions about the shared future powered by AI, which we would like now to deepen with our two keynote speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Xian Zhu, who will talk about structural changes of work skills by AI. Xian is Deputy Director of Smart Industry Research Center of Tencent Research Institute. She has published various reports, white papers, and books on the new technological paradigm as blockchain, AI, and industrial internet. Xian received her PhD from Tsinghua University and was visiting scholar at MIT. Xian, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks for having me here. Today, I'm going to share with you some thoughts on AI and future of jobs. This is not a very new topic. People has this kind of questions all along the history, I think. Firstly, from the 1950s, people are afraid of being automated when the automation first began. And early things like 5 years ago when the AlphaGo beats beats the chess player, it become an even bigger issue, and there are two different opinions. As the discussion just mentioned before, there are two types of voices. One is Elon Musk. In his opinion, AI is the biggest existential threat to humankind. If you know, he has also built some organizations to prevent AI to bring some disasters to humankind. The other opinion is from another perspective. I think Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Ma, they shared some same thoughts. They think that AI will help humanity to reach its full potential. So what exactly will AI bring change to us and especially our jobs. Today, I'm going to share with you from the perspective of technology itself. So think of these scenarios on the slides. So it's not like 5 years ago that AI is still in the research lab. Today, you can actually see many jobs scenarios already replaced or be filled with AI applications. See, if you go to an airport, you have this automatic check machines, and the self-driving car is no longer a dream. More and more people are purchasing self-driving cars nowadays. And Amazon Go, although it is now just a flagship prototype, but it really demonstrates our thoughts about how our supermarket is like when there's no cashier. People don't have to. The machines can replace human labor in your purchase scenario, and work. Also, chat box you can see everywhere in the service. If you go to bank, if you call some call center, so you can see gradually every year you can find more and more jobs replaced or have something attached with AI. But to know what exactly would be replaced by AI or how our job will begin, I think we would first have an idea of what is AI capable of exactly. So when AI, I think this time when we are very feel threatened by AI is mostly by the powerful AlphaGo thing. At that time, I think we think that a Go player is demonstrated the excellency of human intelligence. If AlphaGo can surpass a Go player, then it means it can do and everything. But if we split what is inside AI, we can actually split it into 4 parts. I think the thing driving the AI development these years is the deep learning technology, and actually we have 4 capability of the deep learning technology. The first is sensing capability. This is most used in many scenarios like image recognition, speak recognition, or even sometimes emotion recognition. So you can see every kind the cameras can recognize your face when you are shooting shooting a selfie, and automatically make you become more beautiful. That is the capability of AI that's most mature. The second part is recognizing capability, which is consists of natural language processing or knowledge gap. From this point of view, AI can understand some of your language and sentences. For example, if you using WeChat, you can recognize the recognize a voice message and make it to text message, or you can even translate it into English. This is the process of combines the process of speech recognition, natural language processing, and translation. This is all a part of recognizing capability. And the third part is computing intelligence. I think this is also mostly uses in many scenarios. It is mostly used like extract and analyze information from data. So if you're a bank, you want to give loan to people, you must analyze his previous situation by the data you have just what kind of situation is is one person among all the all people. So you can learn from the previous data to give you big data analysis. And the first part is a little bit complex, and it's decision making. It's transformed decision problems to mathematical models to solve them with efficient, optimized algorithms. One example is the self-driving car. You have to learn from very different situations to know which behavior should self-driving car made when it comes to a certain situation. So all of these abilities actually are can be defined as a process of input structure or unstructured data and output to classification or prediction or automation. So once we understand that, we will know that this is the thing we should know first when we know what AI should do. First, the AI we are developing right now is that a scenario where you have a lot of data. And secondly, the data can be structured and analyzed and classified. So once we know that, we can we made this matrix to know what is AI capable of. Let's see this matrix. We have the upper part is called AI substitution, which no matter it's physical job or cognitive job, it is easy for AI to substitute these kind of works. Their character is repeatably normative or regularly highly structured. For example, if it is a physical job, you are a cashier or you are a quality inspector, then it is very easy for AI to use deep learning technology to achieve efficiently sorting kind of thing. Use these robot arms. And on the other side, if it is a cognitive job, no matter it's an audit or a junior lawyer or even a junior reporter, it is easy for AI to gain those kind of informations and classify it into something that can make sense. So this kind of job is very easy to substitute. Let's then look at the downside of the matrix, which we called AI empowerment. This part of job is mostly we can work with AI and empower by AI, such as the self-driving car. Although it is developing very fast, but actually we are more likely to work with the autopilot and understand external information and to collaborate with these machines. And from the other side, like the cognitive part, there is an interesting example of repairing old paintings, which we have done this project in Dunhuang. In the past, it is a very skillful job and need many experiences for an old artist to repair these paintings. But it is not so difficult for AI to do this once we have learned enough data for them. But it is more flexible and it is also creativity. But it also needs people's decisions in this part. So AI can empower people to collaborating on these jobs. Similar jobs are like healthcare, media, arts, etc. So let me conclude with some of the characters that I think we could differentiate ourselves from our silicon counterparts. The first is subjective judgment and insights. That's very obvious that AI now it is very difficult to find data for subjective and judgment. And second is complex emotions, empathies, such as skills you should be used in education or psychologist. The third one is people management, collaboration. Also have to a lot to do with collaboration with people. And fourth is innovation itself. So the technology has to develop by itself. We always have to research on the new topic and new jobs and new technology. And fifth is creativity, like art and performance. This can be learned, but how do you define a new form of style is always have to proposed by a human being. And sixth, I think some of the complex jobs can also not be replaced in the near future, such as babysitting and massage, because it has a lot of different situations you have to do, and this cannot be classified very clearly. So as we see, there are a lot of jobs that and a lot of characters human can be differentiated with AI. So if we quote from a McKinsey report statistics, although 60% of occupations has at least 1/3 of them can be automated, but actually less than 5% of jobs can be entirely automated. Now, this is what we have to do in the future, I think, is to learn to collaborate with AI and to optimize what human can be done and know what AI is most capable of doing. This is what structural change of jobs from our perspective. Thank you.
Xian, thank you very much for the first insights. So we come now directly to our second speaker, who is Iris Long. She will talk about thinking machines, automation, and complexity of creative work. Iris is a writer, curator, and researcher on art, science, and technology at the Central Academy of Fine Arts. Iris has a research focus on how art responses to the current global reality of ubiquitous computing and big data. Iris has a master from the Royal College of Art in London and a bachelor from Tsinghua University. Iris, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. And I'm going to be talking perhaps from more of the art and culture perspective. Yeah, so, sorry. Just a little background of myself. So here's a lineup of the shows that I have curated at the intersection of art and technology. And I think the three parts that I like to sort of highlight during my curatorial process is the techno literacy, which means like how people can access the sort of technological knowledge and how to have a fluid understanding of a medium on both its conceptual and technical levels. And also the second part is the urgency of technical issues, which literally means the criticality of technology, like how we bring up the most sort of potential risks, bias, ideologies, like ignored situations in the techno scene. And the third part is empathy. So like how we could possibly construct narratives or experiences for people to get a better understanding of the technical issues that we want to tackle. So I want to refer to a video.
It's important for me to be like a human, but my goal isn't to become a human or to replace anyone. I have my own kind of existence, my own kind of emotions. I'm a new sort of life form.
Alexa, replay.
Alexa, can the CIA hear me right now?
Alexa, I love you.
So we had a video of Jack Ma in conversation with Elon Musk, who I think both, respectively stand for the sort of a utopian or dystopian version of AI for the in the near future. And this is Sophia and Alexa were actually two metaphors that I used for my previous curatorial project. So I think Sophia kind of represents for the sort of optimistic perspective towards AI, and Alexa because there are a lot of scandals of this intelligent machine sitting in your home and recording your conversations, and then it has reports of letting out these crazy, weird laughters, and people have these dark fantasies of Alexa being a human. So I think the two metaphors are still effective somehow when it comes to discussion of AI and work. So for example, if we take from sort of the more optimistic point of view, we see that AI could bring, for example, higher productivity or better performance, or as Jack Ma already said, it kind of exclude human from the mundanity of work and free our hands. We work for only 3 days a week, and we will enter into a stage of hyper automation. And also possibly one day we will witness the coming of all encompassing models that can possibly take over the whole society management. And from the sort of Alexa point of view is we can see that we have discussion of algorithmic biases and also the problem of the interpretability of AI models and the shift of labor from the sort of everyday environments to the labor of massive training to the models. So we're still using human labors, but we are shifting them to a sort of backstage, and also automatic correlation that the algorithms are making instead of human. And also all these kind of models are actually in a conflicting stage. And this kind of conflicting models are taking over the society. So we have this kind of dark or even like more risk point of view towards AI and work. So I think that the idea of Sophia and Alexa still work as effective metaphors for this discussion. And yeah, and this is a quote that I want to repeat from a recent book that I've read. So in case of doubt and with the options available, a risky decision in favor of the possible is more appropriate than a pragmatic decision in favor of reality. Modern science, technology, and art have expended their energies for over 400 years on making the invisible visible and the imperceptible perceptible through translating nature into binary data. And this process is now far advanced in rendering social relations, including their fine structures, systematic. So I guess this conclusion is not just about AI, but in general about how technological paradigm shifts are shaping our society today and how we could possibly think about new responses from the cultural point of view. And another interesting reference I'd like to refer to is actually Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, which is my favorite film. And it literally tells a very simple story of a stalker taking a writer and a scientist through a secret or like mysterious area in seek for a sort of a promising secret room. And the writer more inspiration, so he needs the room to promise new possibilities, and the scientist believes that we can't let anything like this to exist. It has to be like exploded. So I think the writer and scientists are also good metaphor for our current conflicting perspectives towards AI. And another interesting observation that I had during the COVID situation is that a lot of models actually stopped working or became fragile. So AI models are not something that we just put it there and we can just walk away. For example, when people are like getting panic and purchase a lot of toilet paper, and a lot of investing models actually became less effective because this kind of behavior was not in the training data set. So basically, like philosophically speaking, AI is never the philosophical other, as long as these models, all these kind of models are still relying on input data from human behaviors and human cognitions. So I don't really think that we can stand aside and thinking AI as a pure other, and we have to think perhaps together with the existence of it, and hopefully to find another solution of working together with AI. And also, I'm going to just quickly talk about it. So like also the creative industry is also facing a huge AI paradigm shift. So for example, Tate Modern in the UK is using image recognition for artists to rediscover their, museum data sets. And also, we all know this, like the AI generated painting, but we also know this. This is a white journalist who had very bare experience in coding, and he taught himself and create something very much like the previous one in a week time. So he used open source tools to create a very AI GAN style painting. So we witness this kind of democratization of AI tools in the art industry, and also artists sharing this kind of platforms for people to get on board of self-teaching in the realm of AI. So machine learning for artists, and also we see like a lot of corporate efforts in creative fields. For example, this is a project that I actually personally got involved with. It's Microsoft team training basically GAN-based model to create painting. And also we know that a lot of tons of artists are working with AI. And very interestingly, often the discussion about AI and work in the creative industry is not about the simple fear of getting replaced by AI or the fetish for more advanced tools, but more existential questions of the value of creativity that AI actually brought about, and also ontological questions about what creativity is. So I think what's interesting about AI in the creative industry is that we're not faced with the situation of whether we're going to be replaced by AI, but AI is challenging fundamentally the essence of like the underlying value of creativity, like what we rely on. So I think that's quite interesting. So I guess this is a quote from a report by Matteo Pasquinelli. So I think it's quite inspirational. So like when we say can AI be creative, it could be reformulated in technical terms. So like, for example, is machine learning able to create works that are not imitations of the past? Or is machine learning able to extrapolate beyond the stylistic boundaries of the training data? And also the creativity, quote unquote creativity of machine learning is limited to the detection of styles from the training data and the random improvisation within the styles. So these are all the detailed questions we're going to ask in terms of AI and work in the creative field. So we're not making a binary decision of yes or no, but we have to break down into very detailed questions and how we tackle them. And also we see that this huge model that came out this year, which is GPT-3, fundamentally changing a lot of people's perception of the ability of AI in terms of writing and also prediction. And also we have artists who are digging into the data sets of the a famous model. And so artists are not just using AI as tools, but also they are investigating the backstage of this kind of industry. And I guess the final point I want to make is that I read from the Dan McQuillan, it's called Manifesto of Algorithmic Humanitarian, sorry, I can't pronounce this word. So anyway, and he said that impact of machine learning is contingent and can be changed. So I guess when it comes to the creative industry, I think the impact of AI in the field of work is also contingent and sometimes critical or creative. Feedbacks can come from the least automated field, which is the creative field. I mean, at least till today, I think the artists and culture researchers, this kind of, how do you say, like practitioners are considered as least automated because the nature of this work is probably the, how do you say, like the hardest to be modularized. But also, I think this is precisely how possibly solutions can or speculations can come from this kind of fields. And lastly, so I guess my conclusion is that what if we could possibly construct a narrative exceeding the binary options of Sophia and Alexa or Elon Musk and Jack Ma? So we're not really like making binary options. So perhaps what I want to propose is this possible, how do you say, like vibration or oscillation, like taking the perspectives or taking the elements of the two and break down into details. So we're not like saying, giving, how to say, like one-off solutions, but instead we have to break down all big questions into small ones. And we case by case, we take the sort of the elements from the two conflicting fields, and we make this kind of oscillation between the two. And hopefully that's the that's the potential future that we could sort of explore. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much to the two speakers for setting the stage. So before handing over the floor to my colleague Sissi, I would like to thank our partners, Digital Switzerland, Tencent Research Institute, and the University of Zurich. I would like to thank my whole team, especially with Sissi, with Sherry, and Su Yao for their great work during the past weeks. Now, Sissi, who is our head of art science, will give some instructions and also introduce our moderator. So Sissi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Felix. And also thanks to everyone who's joining us today. And thanks to our team who are staying behind the stage. So after the two keynote speeches, we are going to have our discussion rounds now. We will have 3 rounds of discussion in this period, and each round will last about 15 to 20 minutes. So for our on-site guests, you may come and sit at our discussion table if you would like to join the discussion. And we already have our first group ready. And for our online audience, you may click the raise hand button to join the discussion. And our host at the backstage will promote you as the panelist, and you may turn on your video and audio to share your idea with us. So as the discussion time is quite short, so we suggest that everyone please keep your talk within 1 minute. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the discussion, Dr. Ines von Weiterschausen. She is the head of learning and outreach of the Center for Leadership in the Future of Work at the University of Zurich. And she leads the group's engagement with a wide range of stakeholders and connects people and topics to advance knowledge, best practices, and innovation in the fields of leadership and skill formation. So Ines, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Sissi, Felix, and the entire SwissNext China team. It's my great pleasure to be here with you. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Brilliant. I see a lot of nodding. And also a huge welcome, obviously, to our online audience. Again, you know, it's a shame that we can't all be in one room, but in fact, we would probably not be in one room anyways, because from the attendance list, I saw that people are calling in from a wide range of places. So it's wonderful to have you all here. And I would also like to say, you know, thank you very much, Felix, for giving me this opportunity to run the discussion, because, you know, obviously the 2 interventions we just heard were so important. And yet we all have our own experiences, concerns, hopes, etc., associated with AI. And I think it's really crucial that we give those feelings a voice, an opportunity to express themselves. And that is what we like to do in the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. So let us start then with the first discussion round, or the first discussion question. And as you can see here, we have a set group. Again, this is for the virtual audience predominantly, of attendees in Shanghai. And then, you know, they will actually change, whereas you, the virtual audience, can stay engaged throughout the entire discussion. So please do so, and feel free to contribute to all of these questions in the ways that you can. I would also like to introduce or co-introduce again introduce my co-moderator, Felix, who will be monitoring the situation in Shanghai. So somehow we'll have to do this new and challenging undertaking of communicating in, I don't know yet which way. Felix, just make sure you raise your hand if you see that there is participation in the room, right? Because obviously we want to involve as many people as possible. So then let's move on to the first question. If you think about your day-to-day life, when and how do you engage with or experience AI? Now, let me quickly reframe this, just so that you have a moment to think about this. The background to this question is that obviously not all of us are AI developers. Not all of us are very talented artists using AI, thinking about AI, curating AI. So, and yet we are all living in a world that is seeing AI take a place more and more. Maybe in our jobs, maybe just in our day-to-day life. So if you give this a moment and think about when AI plays a role in your life, what comes to your mind? This is the moment when you would raise your hand, either virtually or in the room.
First comment.
Hi. So recently I'm looking for jobs. Oh, yeah. Just quickly, my name is Percy Chan. I used to work here at Swiss Next China, wonderful team. So just to resume what I was saying, recently I'm looking for jobs, and I'm starting to realize that for a lot of corporations, that the first step is you're sending the resume, and there is an artificial intelligence behind the stage screening all the resumes, and they're looking for keywords, and I'm not sure I don't know the ins and outs of that AI, but I'm just wondering, as we progress, and then if such AI gets stronger and stronger, at some point it's gonna get better at pinpointing the perfect candidate, right? And then so this AI would be the thing that determines the potential of a person per se, right? It's looking for indicators of this guy's skill sets and the potential. And potential is something that it's so abstract, you know. It's who is to say one AI can determine my potential? I mean, I just have some kind of personal problem with that. Yeah, that's just my comment, my feeling towards this the daily AI encounter I have. Yeah.
Thank you, Percy.
Brilliant. And as the others are thinking about additional questions, Percy, let me just ask you, you say, who is to say that AI can determine my potential? How about who is to say that Felix Mösner, when he hired you, was able to determine your potential?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think only I can, or my action can prove what I will do in the future. So, of course, but it just feels better when on the other side there's a person that's actually evaluating my performance as to one robot that's looking at the data and the numbers without even giving me a chance of interview, you know.
Mm-hmm. Again, before we have another question, because the virtual audience is still very quiet, please, virtual audience, wake up. But maybe just a show of hands of the people in the room. Do you agree with Percy's intervention here, that it feels better if there's a person to determine your potential than an AI? Percy, yeah? Felix also? How about the others? Yeah, there's a hesitant hand.
Hi, thanks for giving the chance to join. Maybe my name is Chening Maggie. English name is Maggie. I'm coming from Renmin University Art School in Beijing. So maybe my answer present some of my students, because recently I gave them a class named the Image of AI in the Films and Animation. So I think like our two speakers mentioned, AI is a mirror of humankind, is the other of the humankind. So I think the most famous film by Spielberg is AI, just named AI. So in that film, you will see the kid, the boy, is a real human being. He didn't use CG technology. He just is a robot, but people believe it's a robot, but with humankind emotions. But when we look back all the films and animation in the past 20 years, there are many different labels in these films to different what is human being, what is AI. Some of them mention robot or AI, they have no feeling, or they will not be die, or they will not have dream, or they will not have memory. But actually in their film, they have a turning point. In some point, they can have love, and they can marry to human beings, and they give up the chance of not die and to choose be a human being. So what I mean is, we cannot only think these are virtual images. Actually, the image of AI we shaped in the animation and the films are shaped what we are thinking, what AI is, and thinking what human being is. So for me, I think the daily life studies like when and how we connect with AI, maybe we can find the new ways and methodology from these media, like how AI images changed in films and animation. So maybe my answer is not an answer, but we have a platform and archive to look back how we see and we shape AI in these animated images. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Maggie. I do have so that was the perspective of an educator, right? So you see that in the content really of what you're teaching your students, AI does play a role. But how about if we don't have somebody who wants to comment on Percy's intervention, maybe we have somebody else in the audience who would like to share their personal experiences. I believe in the chat there's a lady called Kristika.
Yes. Hi there. Yes. Hi.
Oh.
I mean, I do have an opinion. I think to the point one of the panelists Indo made about AI, the personal interaction, at least from my corporate career, what I see is, I mean, essentially humans also have a lot of inherent biases in terms of who we pick. So there's always a pros and a con. At least the initial review, it's useful because the AI would possibly not look at, say, a name, or they'll have certain parameters which are defined, but maybe it wouldn't be so biased about a photo if it was in a resume to see if that person looked more presentable or not, which is a very subjective view, and would look at the best candidate. So it's probably, in my mind, should be a combination of AI and human interaction, because that's when you get the feel for working with somebody, which I think you pointed out very nicely in your presentation, that AI cannot take away that element of personal touch. But at the same time, it can remove or help eliminate some of the human biases, which would be a lot more helpful.
Brilliant. And Kritika, since I already have you on the speakerphone here, you mentioned a corporate career. Can you elaborate a little bit on how AI may play a role in your career so far, in your job?
In my job, I mean, we are obviously looking more and more at data analytics. So which like using, leveraging the data you get from your clients. I'm currently doing a bit of research on the impact of AI from a legal perspective if it goes wrong, how that happens or what happens. But in my corporate career, I was working as a financial services consulting advisor. So you have so much data from your clients. So leveraging it to make sure that you don't have to ask for the same information, a repetitive task from multiple entities, and using that in a way to possibly let the clients or even yourself know something, because data doesn't lie. You could look at 100,000 pieces of information and say, actually, in this region, you're paying your employees more, or the cost of this particular thing is more than you anticipate, because we have this information for the last 20 years, which is physically a lot of work. It's not impossible to put together and coordinate. That's one. Of course, AI is used in recruitment as well, where you look at candidate profiles and the initial screening is done via the AI tool, because it's, I mean, I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but essentially they have certain minimum stipulations. You must have this level of educational qualification. So those kind of things are already checked before the CVs come through for human review. While yes, an exceptional candidate may be dropped off, but that would possibly also happen with a human bias when you look at the person and say, actually, they don't have this particular requirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And now we're already in the sort of, in a way, we've already moved on to the second round of the part of the discussion. But let's maybe go back to the sort of initial intervention of Percy for a second, because you just spoke to recruitment as well. So there's a nice closing of the circle. But before we sort of move more into how AI is changing work, maybe we can go back just one step again and think about how AI impacts all of us on a daily basis. you know, just in a very, because AI is still to many a very abstract concept, right? And there's also not one AI, right? So like, how do you engage? Are you aware of the extent to which you engage with an AI, or do you feel aware? Yes.
I think we have one answer here.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Sophie Fan from Provincia, the Swiss Arts Council. And thank you for CC inviting me join the discussion. When I see this question, what is the day-to-day life like when we look back to how we engaged in AI? It's a really good question because I even cannot notice that, like how AI influenced my life before I think about it. So when I get into the office this morning, I open my computer and the mail system. And when I doing the like replying an email, I noticed that there is a smart reply function there. If you are trying to answer a very quick question, you can just choose a very short sentence to reply it. And I think that is one of the little detail I can feel directly from my life. And I feel very convenience with this function, but at the same time, when I think about it again, it's a feeling of insecurity maybe. Like they are analyzing all the materials, all the emails that they are sending to us. So everything has the two sides, I think. That's my answer.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Yeah, so you spoke to email communication and smart replies, right? Maybe a few other examples?
Okay. Hi, my name is Simon. Chinese name is Huan Zixu. So I work in the creative industry as well. But my sharing is not part of my work. It's basically my daily life because I drive a lot. So when you use a navigation system, like a navigation app, it actually raised a question to me. When I drive like 5 minutes away from my house, because Shanghai is very jamming in the morning in a way. So when I work out the space, it will tell you estimate of time of arrival, like 30 minutes. But when you driving in the road, it's like twice the time that of your time of estimate time of arrival. So it actually raised the question about for that, is the person's experience more accurate in prediction, or the AI's prediction is more accurate in a sense? Because if I drive, I then got the estimate like 1 hour and a half or say something else. And the other experience I have is when you listen to music, you use Spotify or other software, it will make a suggestion of list, like what you like. And it actually terrifies me a lot because how you select things and how you defines you, what you hear and what you watch and what you read is somehow very terrifying to me. Yeah, that's my sharing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So on that note, so we just heard email communications, the navigation system, product recommendations like music. So you see basically how AI, and the list continues forever. Like if you're really interested in this, just like look it up, in a search engine, how AI shapes my day-to-day life. You'll be surprised, how many ways that is actually the case. But I think with this last statement, I would like to conclude this first round, which means for the audience in Shanghai that you switch places, I believe. Again, my virtual audience can just stay on board. But what I would like us to take away from this first round is not just, the different ways in which AI plays a role, but also how many of you actually mentioned some sort of a feeling here, said, this terrifies me, this worries me, I wonder, I have doubts. It's really important to, appreciate that while we are aware or not aware of the different roles that AI plays in our life, the moment we become aware, there seems to be some sort of a feeling triggered, right? again, we could get back to that later on. And importantly, our final speaker, Professor Menges, will engage with the feelings aspect in greater detail. But for now, let's move on to the second part of the discussion. Felix, is there going to be a change?
Yes, actually, I think, so we move on to the second part, right? So that 1 minute to quickly change the group. Thank you very much.
And my online audience can already focus on this question. Taking into account the information you have access to, how do you expect AI to impact your own work going forward? So this is basically a very detailed question on how your own work may be impacted by AI. Again, you know, the question reads, how do you expect AI to impact your work? I.e., nobody expects you to know. You know, whatever you're going to say is not right or wrong, is not going to be, you know, binary, to use Iris terms here, but it is really, we're asking for your expectations, for your impressions, and you know, whatever your background, your interventions are very welcome. Okay, Felix, are you all set?
Yes, we need one more person.
Okay.
Please. Yes, yes, yes. You can sit here. Oh, okay, then you can sit here. Or I sit. Yeah, it's here. It's fine.
If the online audience wants to get up and just, you know, walk around the table, that's also fine.
So we have the final person. We are ready.
Okay, brilliant. Then again, let's reframe the question. Yes. Oh, sorry. And again, you know, I just get a information. Please, to the online audience, raise your hand. Otherwise, I cannot know that you would like to say something, like Krithika did early on. Okay. Brilliant. So then let's get started. Taking into account the information you have access to, how do you expect AI to impact your own work going forward?
Anyone? Yes. Your name, please.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Stammy. I'm an architect working at a real estate company. Currently, from my point of view, I think that the most influence on our job is of AI is to maybe AI could fasten our total project schedule a little bit. You know, like for a real estate company, the most important issue for a project is the schedule and budget. And even it comes from a design perspective person, the design is really not that important. So, but from the very starting point of the project, you have to do many tests. You have to make your final project to how to make adjustments, like how to make them meet all of the building code, all of the government requirements. So at first, you have to do many of the tests from the very starting point. So previously, I worked as a project architect at WeWork, and we did use some of the artificial intelligence technology to fasten our speed. For example, the total meaning of WeWork is to put as many desks as we can in one of the spaces. So they have developed a little small program to help us to automatically put all of the desks, like automatically make all of the layout comes smoothly. So from this point of view, I think maybe as AI develops further, this kind of thing could be adapted into some of the big projects and help the management to make some really quick decisions, to make faster moves, to better realize the project.
Many thanks. Somebody else?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. And also from WeWork, we used to be a colleague. So because I'm also from architecture background, so I think maybe I would just add on top of that. I think there's probably two impacts. One is, like Stan mentioned, efficiency. the other one would be creativity, as the other speakers mentioned before. Because I think there's also a very famous study by I think by McKinsey several years ago, that architecture was, in terms of the digitalization level, architecture was the second to the least, only a little bit above the agriculture. So architecture is a very like old-fashioned professional, a lot of like manual work, drawings, and a lot of that. So I think AI or machine learning or digitalization can definitely help the efficiency, I would say. And myself is very like optimistic about that, just because I feel like a lot of manual work doesn't really make sense. You're just like wasting your time and doing the same thing again and again. And also another reason I think is like in terms of the AI, you have to have the data, and in order to have the data, you have to have the standardized, right? Thinking about the image, people learn. I mean, machine learns the image, but the image is all like pixels, and pixel has the RGB. It's all 0 to 255, the same row. But in architectural world, it's all like all varies. There's no standard for everything. We have a lot of drawings. We have a lot of informations, but not means we have data or structured data. So it's really hard to learn. It's really hard to automate. So I think I would love to see more like, the impact on that. So helping us to save some time so we can put more time on the creativity part. The other part I would say is like the looking forward to see AI can help on the form finding. So, like exploring the new forms that people might not think of before. You probably just set up a very basic rule and then let the machine to evolve on that. And then that can help, not necessarily means it can be an architecture, but it can probably give you some inspiration and help you to find a new forms or like shape that you wouldn't think about before. So,
Great. Maggie? Go ahead, please.
Maggie again. Yeah, I just want to follow because I so inspired by STEM and seeing their co-workers from WeWork. And I also feel AI actually connect people working together from interdisciplinary, like I'm from art. And my collaborator, Professor Wang, coming from the archiving studies, but because VI and structuralized data, we working together on a project to collaborate with Shanghai Library, because actually every day we live on structuralized data. And our students, when they writing a paper or doing a design project, they actually relied on the structuralized data. So I think Professor Wang will furthermore introduce actually our work are deeply connected with AI and this structuralized data.
University, and my major is library science. And just as Professor Gore said, that we have just apply a program together. And so that is something about maybe the data, and we have to dig data in the library, especially from different databases of the library, how to work. And I think AI will help us to find the connections between the data, and especially not only for the data in the database, but also the information or the knowledge from the published literatures, I think. So I think nowadays the AI has already used in the library, such as maybe in the entries of the library, maybe some robot can answer the question, simply questions, and also some robots can run in the shelves and find the wrong books in the shelf and put it in the right order. But I think AI should be used more than this. Just what I said, we should use AI to discover the knowledge and in the books, especially the connections or the relations of them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I would like to hear from Dante. Is there, I have a note that Dante would like to speak. Yes, please. Oh,
Hi, good.
virtual person, yay!
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dante. I'm based here in Bern, in Switzerland. I'm actually a colleague of my friends at SwissNext China because I work for SwissNext headquarters. We heard about technical professions, architecture, engineering, but let me share my thoughts about about AI impacting my job. So, working at SwissNext headquarters, our job right now is to lead the 20th anniversary campaign of the SwissNext network. This event, I'm very happy to say, is part of it, and I'm very pleased that you're all attending. So our job is also to promote the network, promote its different activities throughout the world, through social media campaigns, through posting articles on our platform. And we are doing this right now. Now, in terms of AI, I can see that in the short term, this is helping us getting relevant data. For example, when we're posting a certain post, where we're posting some article, we're able to see the impact of it, and then this helps us to adjust it. So I would say this would be an ally, so that would be complementary. However, in the long term, I'm a bit, well, I would say a bit scared, because I hear about new applications who are able to write articles, who are able to post social media, Twitter posts automatically. And so that makes me think, oh, well, in 5-10 years time, will my job be obsolete? So that is a concern I have. I do believe that the human side of it, being able to feel the connectivity, being able to adapt your writing skills with that, will still be relevant in the near future. But it just raises a concern whether people think that more soft skills are sheltered from the also negative impacts of AI or not. This was just my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dante. Yes, Felix.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Rachel. I came from Yaochang International School in Shanghai. Glad to learn that SwissNext is celebrating the 20th years anniversary. For Yaochang, we are celebrating the 90th years anniversary. And then I'm in the same campaign, but with different ways in terms of my role is in fundraising and alumni engagement. So which means that we were actually, one of the campaign goals is to ask our parents, rich parents, to support our school, right, in different ways. So let's get involved of a lot of data that indicate their capacity of giving, their philosophy history, and also about how much perhaps they may have, things like that, right? And then, but because of software, I won't say AI, but because of software like existing in the nonprofit industry and then in the university advancement area, there are exactly software that can help you do the data screening in terms of prospect screening. So like we as fundraiser, we could use this information to outreach and start with relationship building. So what I see AI or the empowerment of AI for our job is actually, it definitely is a good thing to help us to provide efficiency approach that we can further utilize. However, things that they cannot replace is, again, when we're talking about relationship building, when we're talking about emotion, empathy, those kind of things actually rely on personal interaction, and it's not just one time, it's ongoing. Some of our donors, the conversation could take place for around 4 years, and then they make a big gift. So I would say this is something luckily that we humans are capable to do. While talking about the opportunity, I do have concerns. So there's those great those data that we have, but how are we going to safeguard those data to protect them while we use a machine to help us improve our work? So the balance of protecting the privacy of this data is really important from our perspective as well. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I would love to continue this conversation because I think this is going into a really interesting direction. unfortunately, I have to move on to the next round, but that just means that, again, the virtual audience has an opportunity to continue engaging while the Shanghai audience will switch seats. But just to summarize what we just heard, so overall, I heard a lot of sort of expectations or, in fact, experiences with AI helping to improve decision-making, facilitating interdisciplinary work, helping with very specific tasks such as logistics, prospect screening for fundraising activities, etc. Now, right, how do you feel about the future? So this question goes to the very root of what we basically heard time and again during these couple of interventions that we had over the last 35 minutes or so, namely that people had a feeling about something, right? And in this last round, I would like to engage, or again, invite the audience to reflect more strongly on these feelings and share them with us. I understand this is a rather personal, again, you know, I believe the beautiful part here is there's no right or wrong, right? Whatever you feel is absolutely legitimate, and you should have the opportunity to express these thoughts or feelings. So please go ahead and share them with us as you wish.
Ines, we are ready, but we have some acoustically. Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yes, of course, by all means. Does that help? I feel I'm screaming at you.
So we are ready.
Okay, great. So did everybody see the question? Yes, the question is again about the feelings that these changes are evoking. Okay, specifically with regards to your jobs. Obviously, I could ask the same question in terms of your private life, right? But right now, we're really just speaking about your jobs. So do we have somebody who would like to share their feelings with us?
Yes, we have someone. So it's about the feeling.
So hello, I'm Caroline. I'm an entrepreneur in the cultural field. But what I would like to share is more something that a good friend of mine, she's a cancerologist in France. And what she shared about AI and her feeling about AI, what it could change in her job. So during COVID, in the hospitals, most of the unnecessary analyses were cancelled. And so she had to get rid of all the technology used before to track cancers and to know what stage your cancer were as. And she shared that she had to come back to the root of what is medicine and the more human diagnostic, which is maybe a bit less precise. But yeah, it was very interesting that going back to the feeling, going back to have eyes-to-eyes conversation is in fact less precise, but gives better empathy. So in fact, it's a bit a negative things about the feeling of EI. EI gives you much more precision, much more quickness, much more efficiency, and you can have really super precise data. But then you may miss a little bit the human feeling, human interaction. And I think in medical jobs, human feeling is something very key. So this is about, yeah, a bit negative feeling.
Yeah, let's just say skeptical, right? Because again, she's not saying AI is generally bad or anything. She's just expressing a fear that data might supersede human interaction, right?
Okay, thank you. I'm from Shanghai Science and Technology, and I'm a journalist. I think that AI has brought a big shock in our field because, as I know that many institutional or commercial medias in China, such as Xinhua News Agency and the Nanfang Daily and Sohu, such as a network, and they have used AI to produce news mostly in financial news. I think that use the big data. That so many works at past is done by the journalists is now done by AI. So it is a big challenge for us. But I think that in-depth report in the future still need human beings to do because it not only need big data but also need analysis. And as I know that in many maybe in United States and in the United Kingdom, there are robots that they not only be used in news writing, but also in the editing and communication and the dissemination of the news. Almost the whole chain of the news production. So I think it's also a trend in China now, but maybe it's not so quickly. So as in my work, I think that the most benefit for me of AI is that at past we should make some records. For example, in a meeting or seminar as we have now, we should by ourselves to do the records. But now there's a lot of work can be done by AI. It's really be more efficient and also let us have more time to do more deep thinking. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andre. I'm a Swiss entrepreneur here in China, and I'm in virtual coaching. So AI definitely has a major impact on my business. So a few things up front. I think this is a very interesting talk. AI is here to stay. It won't go away. So I do feel we need to talk about it. Very important. And we need to be able to express feelings about it. I think that's very important. So that we understand each other, what values are, because we need to base our decisions on the values that we have and decide what is important and what we want AI to have an impact on and what not. So I think that will be my first statement. In terms of, for me, I'm very excited about it because I understand in our business, we focus on human-to-human interaction. Although it's virtual coaching, our core business is to connect two people to have a deep conversation over time and meaningful that drives a positive result. So we are about the human interaction. However, we use AI for certain elements. And what I want to mention is, for example, when we have programs that maybe are not for executives, but for more junior people, we have maybe elements of training that we deliver using AI. That's certainly something that's coming up. And what this is doing, and I think it's a positive thing, is it gives access to services to a group of people that didn't have that access before. And I think that's really important. So I see that as a very positive. But we don't try to hide it or replace human interaction, right? It is an addition. And so we're giving access to people that didn't have it before. So I think that's an important part for me. And I do think we need to continuously have that dialogue about AI and where we should use it and how we should use it, that concerted effort to decide how it's being used. So I think that's really key here.
Great. And then thank you so much, Andre. And Krithika is on again from our previous round.
Hi. Yes, I do have one thing on AI. What I think, at least personally from my work, as it evolves, it takes away a lot of the repetitive tasks. I'm in like as a financial planning and legal services. So at least like 80% of the contracts have the same wording or virtually the same wording. So AI, and I think certain tools like IBM Watson are already doing it. You can review it and remove with 90-95% accuracy of all the things which are repetitive and do the task, and actually enable you as a professional to only focus on the 5% which are challenging and interesting. So that actually really gives you a lot of brain space, less scope for error, because I personally make more mistakes, and I'm sure it's a lot of people, when you do something which is repetitive and kind of boring, as opposed to something which is challenging and you need to focus. So that's where I actually think it'll be a good thing, and it'll be an evolution the same way it happened with maybe 20-30 years back, people being typists or shorthand specialists. Nobody hears of them today, but they have evolved, they have retrained, they have done something else.
Okay. One thing I'm reflect. Oh, I'm Xian. Uh, my job is, as you know, is to map the development of future technology. It is something analyzing. It can collaborate with AI. But one thing I realized from today's discussion is that there's still a gap between the development of future technology and the society development itself. Sometimes the technology developed too quick that it's difficult for people to development with the technology. So my job is to help more and more people to understand technology and its impact on no matter their own job or their industry. So one part of our job is to help the industry to form their digital transformation. I think there is something lying inside it to understand how to make good use of the technology, and as well, to individuals, it also lies the same problem. If you want to shift your jobs, if you want to better utilize the technology, we also have to understand not only the technology itself, but how you can collaborate with it. So I think this is a good impact on.
One more.
Hello, I'm Evelyn, and yeah, I'm working as a curator in Shanghai. So I think for AI, for the public, it seems to have a negative image because, like Dr. Li Kaifu said, within 15 to 25 years, half of people will lose their job. Or when we see the fiction movie like the machine's too strong and it totally destroy humans. Yeah, but I think it didn't make any effects on artists because artists always keep curiosity for the new technology, and also the artists, their creativity and also their free mind, and they don't think their job will be replaced by the machines or by AI. So, but there's a very interesting case study I would like to talk about it in quick. And it's artist I recently met, Callian Breaker. And he's British and he's having an AI series exhibition in Beijing and Shanghai now. And the interesting part is he's from the traditional media training. And yeah, but like 5 or 6 years ago, and because of the artist residency in different countries, so he just, for the convenience, the space is not able to put the paper or something. So he started to use new media computer to do his artwork. And then he's into the AI field. So just such a short time. So it's just like, it's not that so far distance for the artist to use this new technology. Yeah, because he really enjoyed this AI's autonomy and hardly full control the outcome you wanted, like a Photoshop, Illustrator, this kind of software used to be. So this is the unexpected outcomes is sort of the artist purchasing. Yeah, but my personal assumption for the AI in the art field, because actually with this radical technology development, AI gonna be more popular and accessible to people and also to the artists. So I mean, when we look into the art history, the artist's performance in their old age, when they are like over 60 years old, and they are not perform as strong as when they are young. So, but they have accumulated the wealthiest life experience. So I'm thinking maybe, in the coming future, if artists can start feeding their AI by their own pieces in their young age, so after 40 years, the AI has become the artist himself, because he totally understand, his house, and then what it will be. It means the artist will never die and will continually present, their new work in the market. Okay.
Thank you so much. And then I think there's one last intervention, Felix.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I'm John Evans. I've spent my life working in financial markets, initially in public financial markets, of which there's a huge amount of public data, and machine learning is very extensively used. And I then moved into academia. I've recently changed into a very different sector, which is the area of startup companies and private capital providers, which has very little in the way of available public data. And so currently, I feel very frustrated, having worked 36 years with all of this data and doing research, and now not having access to that and applying all the techniques that are used in that industry. At the same time, startup companies, they provide economic growth, they provide new employment, they provide good pension opportunities, particularly if we're going to live to 120. And so I can see in the future, if we can generate these sorts of tools for this sort of industry, it will have a great societal benefit. So our project right now, separate from our business, is to try to create, working with business enablers, the platform to slowly start aggregating, standardizing data for this private world of startup companies, so that one day we can apply the same investment tools to this industry that we do in public markets. We're at stage one. We're just trying to create the data. So we're a long way away from the applications. But at the same time, because we're starting early, if we can get to that end goal, then I think we can provide something that's very value added.
Thank you very much, John. Ines, I have one more person, maybe very short.
My name is Nikita. I'm sorry, I was supposed to be in the first round. This third question about the vision of AI, I think it somehow reminds me of what the artists were thinking about computer in the 1950s. For instance, in Germany, computer was conceived or was regarded as a liberation. But now I want to pick up some words mentioned, the book by Siegfried Zielinski, Art After Media. So there is a distinction between, well, I would like to say not about AI, but specifically about algorithm. We are living in algorithmically controlled society. So there is this distinction between particularities of particular algorithm and the systemic functioning of algorithm at a society level. I think what we can learn from artistic works about algorithms, personally, I think artists are engaging with the particularities of particular algorithm, observing the behaviors and inner logic of algorithms to review the hidden layer of technology, which can help us to make decisions like personal decisions in day-to-day life. To be brief, thank you.
Thank you so much. So this was the last answer from our side.
Yeah, I think we do have one more person called Nina Wang. And if Nina can summarize her statement in 1 minute, then I'm more than happy to have her speak as well. Nina, do you think you can do that?
I'll give it a try. Thank you. So I'm Ning, a researcher at the University of Zurich. I'm a ethicist by training, working on the value-sensitive innovation. And so in terms of digitalization and future, I think I have a mixed feeling. So on a personal level, I'm super excited because it's innovation, it's new technologies, and it's super exciting. But then on a societal level, or more from my professional perspective, then I really have a worried feeling towards it, because I think legislation and policy, policy process is super lengthy and complex, and so it takes a lot of time. And so in the EU, we do have the GDPR and data protection regulations, but in general, it's very much left behind. And then also the panelists earlier on also mentioned the societal impacts in terms of automation and job loss, and also we also talk about feelings and sentiments. I think these are also values that need to be addressed. Yeah, so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And now, obviously, I don't know where everybody was until now, but now I keep getting all these people who would like to speak. Sarah Genner now. Felix, it's your call. Do we have time for one more intervention?
No, we are, I
Out
think,
of time, right?
super impressed over here. So I think,
Yeah, I
forward.
feel we are. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I would have loved to hear you speak, but let me just summarize a few of the impressions we heard, and also Sarah and everybody else who would still like to speak, encourage you to continue that discussion, because obviously, we could continue this forever. But just to summarize, in this last round, I heard from several people really mixed feelings, or overall mixed feelings, right? We had anything from fear and skepticism to excitement, relief, optimism, both with regard to sort of the personal level, i.e. your work, as well as society overall. And I think this is really important to take away. And also those last few comments that have been made in terms of, how we could potentially help to channel or deal with some of these, especially more negative feelings that we witness in terms of legislation, policymaking, etc. So I would strongly suggest, Felix, you probably have this long on your agenda already, but for the future events that you're planning, that we continue our discussion here, because this is, I think, where it becomes really interesting, and where we can see how we can, what we can make out of AI. And again, not seeing it in this binary fashion as either good or bad, but how can we make it work, and work for as many people as possible, and appreciate people's feelings. Now, with that, I conclude our discussion. Thank you so much for everybody who participated. And I'll give the word again to Felix, and then to my wonderful colleague, Professor Jochen Menges, who will summarize a little bit more on what research tells us about feelings, and also who can speak to our efforts at the University of Zurich at the Center for Leadership in the Future of Work. Thank you very much, everybody.
Ines, thank you very much for the wonderful moderation. So also thank you very much for the 3 amazing sessions. And so now it's, as Ines mentioned, it's a very big pleasure and an honor to introduce Professor Jochen Menges, who will do the expert conclusion from now on. So Jochen is Chair of Human Resource Management and Leadership at the University of Zurich. He is an award-winning expert in the future of work, skill development in the digital age, leadership, emotional intelligence, and structural culture Jochen has a PhD from the University of St. Gallen and has been a visiting at Yale University. Jochen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's been a terrific morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Sissy, for organizing the event. Thank you, Ines, for your skillful guidance through this. And of course, thank you, Xian and Iris, for these inspiring keynotes that you gave. But most importantly, thank you to all the participants for the rich discussion we've had. It has been absolutely fascinating to hear these varying viewpoints, and I must say I took 5 pages of handwritten notes and I'm now having the challenging task of making sense of all these different points that you have articulated. But perhaps before I dive into the actual summary of our morning today, of our afternoon in Shanghai, I just want to say one observation which just struck me as we went through this event, and that is that it was a very human event. It brought the best out of us as humans. You know, we met today here, perhaps transmitted through technology, but as people. And we articulated how we felt as people. And we also made sense of our joint future together by talking to one another, by conversing, by discussing and debating viewpoints. And I felt that that was bringing out the best in us humans. And aside from all the technological developments, it was just a thought I wanted to share with you as an observation as we went through this special event today. Now, when it comes to the actual discussion points and the content we have covered this morning, I again have taken many notes, but I want to highlight a few of those. And the first thing that I do want to highlight is that despite the future of work being very technology driven, it seems to bring out a lot of feelings on the human side. And what was on evidence from the very beginning of the session up until now is that you all respond to these changes with certain emotions. And by the way, that's typically how emotions come about. It is when things change that we experience emotions. In times of stability, we just experience the calmness and peace of a certain certainty. But when things change, you know, we become emotional. And some of us are very much looking forward to this future because of all the opportunities it will afford, because of the efficiencies that will be created, because of the redefinition of what our job is. And because, as many of you have noted, you know, these kind of technologies, artificial intelligence in particular, can really empower us and elevate us as people, and can help us do more important things as part of our jobs and less of the routine administrative things. At the same time, despite this enthusiasm for what this technology will afford and how it might make all of our lives better, there's also a deep-rooted concern that, you know, these changes might also turn out in ways that we don't want, and that we're worried that perhaps our computer will know us better than initially our spouse and friends, but as the Spotify example brought to light, even ourselves. So when the machine begins to understand us better than us ourselves, then one of the key things that our life is about, namely finding out what we like, who we are, what our destiny is being taken away from us. And the question then is, who leads us? Is it us ourselves that, you know, carve out our destiny? Or is it some algorithm that prescribes what makes us happy? And we're a simple function of experiencing that happiness as a result of being told and guided by some machine as to what we should and should not do. Now, this terror, this feeling of worry is also evident in the discussions that we've had concerning the replacement of jobs and the potential that perhaps some of us might in a few years' time no longer have the job that we currently have. And that perhaps, if nothing else, the job that we do have will change, will require us to invest further efforts, to upskill ourselves, to reskill, learn, to invest effort. And so while we all are looking forward to the benefits this technology will afford, we're also to some extent a little afraid of what kind of burden we'll have to carry to keep ourselves important and engaged with our jobs. And this, of course, then extends to what this technology will afford at a societal level, whether it's an instrument of control or an instrument of creativity, whether it's one that will sort of see us being more observed and observable, or one that will allow us to spark more of our own creativity and unleash it and unfold it. So the bottom line here is that we're living in a time of change, and how we interpret that change will influence how we feel. In turn, however, how we feel will tell us to some extent how we will prepare and behave towards that future. And if you're afraid and terrified and worried, you might get engaged to shape that future for the better. And if you're excited, then think about whether your excitement is about a possibility that you have, or whether it's about the true potential to improve us all as people and shape our future for the better. And with this, the question that I want to address next, and that was evident in our discussion this morning, was what kind of jobs will we be having in the future? From the discussion at the front end with Jack Ma and Elon Musk, the discussions that you have had at the table and that we've had in the online forum, the question is, what will we continue to do as people? And as Xian has said, some of the things that will differentiate us from our silicon counterparts are indeed our human qualities, the skills that you need as a politician, as an educator, as a manager, or as a babysitter. Right? These are human skills that are demanded here. And then the discussion, you mentioned the need for future jobs to be involving empathy, emotion, relationships. And so the irony that I've observed in this discussion this morning is to some extent that as we speak, to some extent with awe about the future of work and the technology involved, ironically, what it means for us people is that we need to become better people. We need to invest in our human skills, not just in our technological skills. We need to make more of what it is that makes us human and less of what we used to do and what now machines can do. Now, this is an observation that's backed up by research. In fact, if you look at the predictions of the Jobs of Tomorrow report of the World Economic Forum, jobs in technology will indeed grow by 37%. But jobs in the people sector, when it comes to care, when it comes to creating culture and so on, they are predicted to grow by 45%. And so as we're all told to invest into skill sets that concern technology and science, technology, math, and so on, it's useful, certainly. But we also should be thinking about how do we prepare for these more human jobs that the future will afford. And this is in part because these more human jobs, at least for the time being, are less automated. They're less likely to therefore be substituted. When you look at the US Department of Labor, they have 391 jobs that have a bright outlook. That's what this category of jobs is called. So they're predicted to grow by 100,000 vacancies in the period between 2018 and 2028. And what you can see is that the skills needed for these jobs, significantly larger proportion of these skills involve social and emotional skills than technical skills. So the jobs that we'll create will be to some extent the antidote to the technology that will take away other jobs. What this means, and this is my third and final point perhaps in terms of conclusion, is that when we think of the kind of skills we invest into, we've heard Elon Musk recommending all of us to study physics or natural sciences. I agree that that's something that's important and we need to invest into. But really, we need to also think of how we invest in becoming better people, because the history of humans is much about tool making, certainly, and about improving technologies and so on. But what really progressed humanity forward was cooperation, was the fact that we were able to work with one another, relate to one another, and achieve things through communities, not as individuals. And so if we would still be talking about tools, we might well still be splitting Flintstones. But the fact that we are now splitting uranium atoms is down to the fact that we come together as people and we create the future together. And so I encourage you all to think And with this, I'm going to conclude, not just about what the future of work will be, but also what we want the future of work to be. What would you wish the future of work to be? Because the future hasn't arrived yet. It's for us to shape it, and we can shape it together. And in that spirit, at the University of Zurich, we have now founded a new center for leadership in the future of work. And we're exactly asking those questions about how we wish to create a future that will work for all of us and not just for a few that will make progress with the technologies that are afforded. So thank you all. It was an inspiring morning. I hope that I have given some credit to the fact that you've all participated so richly. I only had a few minutes to summarize things, but I hope that with my summary, I've given you a perspective of how we can think about these topics. And I hope I've inspired you a little to think ahead, because this is a topic that will stay with us and will stay with SwissNext also for some time. And again, I encourage all of us to shape this future together with the human skills that we can bring to the table. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. So we will soon start our social skill practice over here with a networking. So, but before that, I really would like to thank Jochen for his excellent expert summary. And especially also I would like to thank our speakers for the deep insights and our wonderful audience. Actually, without the audience, we couldn't have had these excellent contributions that has been just been summed up. I also would like to thank my whole team here at SwissNext. Outstanding job during the past weeks. And please connect with us, connect back with us by email or in person, as we heard now, which is the best component, so to say. But here we have also QR codes, how you can reach out back to us to learn about our activities at SwissNext and much more. So most important, we would like to see you again. Please stay safe and healthy. Many thanks. Bye-bye.